episode 4. Today's topic is advocating for yourself. We'll be sharing our thoughts as young people about sticking up for ourselves and hopefully giving you some tools for advocating for yourself across systems as a young person.
The material and information presented here is provided by Lived Experience Youth and for general information purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are of the guests of our podcast own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Youth Move.
Hello, welcome to our podcast. This is Youth Move Colorado. This is our first virtual recording. We're here today to talk about advocating for yourself. Savannah, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're chatting about here today?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about advocating for yourself, which is like a guide to help you stand up for yourself, basically. It's not anything to not do for yourself. It's really bad if you don't speak up for yourself because who else will? Sometimes, there's nobody around and just yourself, and then you have to learn how to navigate the world by yourself. Also, shout out for Colorado Youth Awareness Week coming up in September. It's the second week in September, and stay tuned for more in-person events and virtual events from us.
Well, I guess we can jump right in. I think with what all of us do at our different sites, advocating for ourselves and for other young people is a really huge part about what we do. Does anyone have a time where they felt like they had to stick up for themselves, either recently in your job or, as a younger person, as a minor?
Honestly, I was just about to ask that question. I was about to be like work-wise or actually just in general. I guess I'll start with in general. I finally got to a point where I had to pull a I do what I want situation when it came to me making decisions for myself and being an adult in your parents' household kind of situation, because I still live with my mom and stuff like that. And so the rules is kind of her house for rules, you kind of let her know things and stuff like that. But I started to get tired of it because it was just like, I'm 22. I need to go out and do things. I shouldn't have to constantly go by you to do things. And so now I'm just, going on vacations by myself, making sure that I do tell her. But it's one of those things where you have to put your foot down in that situation, because it's just either you get tired of it or the other person gets tired of it. And you have to understand that there's a better communication and conversation about it if you talk about it instead of just doing an impulsive, bullheaded decision and just going for it,
Yeah, that transition time is so weird when you're in that, that transition age, because it's we have people telling us what to do for every aspect of our lives. And then we turn 18 and suddenly it's half of the people are still treating you like you're a kid. And then half of people are expecting you to know everything about the world suddenly and know everything about yourself. And that's so not the case. Does anyone else have an experience like that?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I've been experiencing some struggles recently with my school and just getting passed around. It's one of those situations where I'm trying to get answers and talk to someone. And they're like, oh, I'm going to have you talk to this person. And then that person is like, I'm going to have you talk to this person. And it gets so exhausting, just getting passed off from person to person. So I just kind of want to speak to that and be it is really exhausting sometimes to advocate for yourself. And it feels sometimes I just want to give up, honestly. We're telling the truth. I'm feeling like I'm hitting a wall, but I'm going to keep going, just persevere, because Savannah was saying, if you don't stick up for yourself, nobody else is going to. And I think also because we're younger, people feel like they can just pass you off or disrespect you or not treat you like a person, like a person.
Right.
And that is just so frustrating. But I just want to encourage people to like just keep calling, keep showing up for yourself because nobody else will. Like, this is my fight with my school right now. So I'm going to keep trying. But it is really, really hard to advocate for yourself. And I think finding someone who has your back and knows your side of the story can also be really helpful. Like, you don't have to be alone in advocating for yourself. And that's part of the work we do, at least at my site with young people, is we like to walk alongside them, like not do things for the young people we work with, but help support them in their goals. So like if they want to go to school, being that person alongside to be like, these are your rights. This is what you're allowed to do. So that way they're not alone. And I kind of need that right now too.
Also, I want to talk about the medical field, like where you go into a doctor's office and you feel uncomfortable because, they didn't get your pronouns right, or they assumed like you did alcohol and other substances and like stuff like that. And then you really have to advocate for yourself when you go see like mental health specialists, they think whatever's right for you, it's probably not because they don't know exactly what you're going through or how you feel about like the different treatments. I recently had a new doctor, but they said it wasn't my doctor. She was filling in for the new doctor. So it was really confusing. It was like, what is even going on? And then she really wanted me to get like this procedure done. And I was like, I already had that. Why are you listening to me? And then she was like, well, I have to know the results of it. And it was really odd because if she's not even my doctor, why is she so concerned about something like, a regular physician could do and not her? It was really weird. So yeah, just please like advocate yourself in everywhere, like school, hospitals, family. If you don't speak up, then like who else has your own opinion besides yourself?
That's really good, Savannah. I would also like to mention while you were saying about the medical, if you just so happen to tell your doctor that you want to get these certain type of tests done, like say you want to get checked for diabetes and things of that sort, if they do not do it, you can tell them to write that down, as a refusal of doing a test that you needed. And so they will either have to write it down or it'll force their hand to actually do what it is that you need to do. So if anybody else needs that information, that'll be something for you guys to have because I've had to do that a couple of times with a couple thyroid issues that I've had and things of that sort because it's been a constant repeat that I don't feel okay. And I went to doctor to doctor to doctor, which that's another thing too. Switching your doctors is totally fine with these situations because it's just like sometimes you have that one doctor that's super irritating and they clearly do not know what they're doing. And a lot of people feel more comfortable with having the same sex or somebody that's looking like them, things of that sort. So it's just like you also need to find something that's more comfortable to you, if that makes sense.
And I love this whole conversation of like medical rights for minors and like the age of consent for healthcare. And that's something important to point out is that that's different in every state. So like a lot of our listeners might be in Colorado like we are, but a lot might also not be. So that's super easy to look up for wherever you are, wherever you're located. So do that. Know your rights.
I think something that isn't really talked about a lot is advocating for yourself around people of, I don't want to say people of power, because I personally feel like no matter what, we're all equal, we're all human. But people who have, like, let's say a judge, for example, or a lawyer or something, like like I brought up in one of the previous episodes with my child, the fact that I had to quickly figure out how to advocate for myself appropriately to be able to have my son placed back with me as soon as possible. That was hard and it was uncomfortable and I had no idea what I was doing. And it is like it is nerve-wracking trying to advocate for yourself around to someone who basically will make the final decision. And with that being said, like I had to tune into my supports. I had to reach out to other people who have been in similar situations. Just collecting all of those experiences can help you know exactly what to do and how to be successfully communicating that without being like defensive.
Thank you for sharing that, Lizzie. Yeah, like as a young adult, you know your needs and your life more than any other person can. So, like prioritizing those needs, knowing your rights, keeping records, like Soraya said, like, or I think it was Soraya, getting everything in writing for your records because people will try to walk all over you because they feel like if they feel like they can, they will try to.
Which that kind of leads to the, next kind of thing. We're all young, with that situation. And so when they see us young people, it's always, what do you know? It's always that you're X age. What do you know about everything? And that's why it's so frustrating for us to try and advocate for ourselves. Because I don't know if you guys done it before, but when I was a teenager, it used to drive me up the wall when I'm trying to explain to a teacher, my mom, my family members that are older than I am, like, hey, I'm not okay, or I need help with this, or I know a little bit more about this information. And then it's just like, well, you're 16. What do you know about this? And it's just like, I know enough for you not to know. And that's the other thing too, with when it comes to these advocating for yourself. We need that active listening aspect for the adults around us to like be able to understand what is going on, how we're going to do this, how are we going to navigate this situation. And it's not fair because it's just like, what can we do to push ourselves to have them listen, but also in the same breath, not minimize what we are feeling, acting upon, and things of that sort.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, especially like sometimes being the youngest in the room. And just to go back to what you said, Julia, too, about people walking all over you, I think we could share with our audience, like, it's okay to not be nice. If people are disrespecting you, not listening to you, like, I'm not saying be rude and like be super angry, but it's okay to assert yourself and like let people know how you're feeling. Like, hey, you can't disrespect me. I don't think you're listening to me. Because sometimes I feel like, oh man, I wasn't really nice in that situation. Like, I could have been better. But in reality, it's like sometimes people don't listen until you get stern, especially when you're younger. They're like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, she looks like she's just like, doesn't know what's going on. And I think having that confidence to be stern and like just speak up can be really scary, but also like don't be afraid that you're not being nice because these people aren't being nice to you. Like if you're with the doctor and they're not listening, you don't have to be like, oh, can I please like get this? Like, would that be okay? Like, no, you should say, write down that you're refusing to give this test that I'm asking for. Write down that you're telling me no when XYZ is happening to me, like that type of thing. And I think also being the youngest in the room, like I personally hear this all the time, like, oh, you're like wise beyond your years. Has anyone else heard that? And I told someone the other day, I was like, dude, I've heard that since I was 5. Like people have been telling me that since I was 5. And it used to be a compliment. And now I'm almost like, are you underestimating me because I look young? Like you think I'm not supposed to have this experience, like not supposed to have this like opinion. So I don't know. Has anyone else experienced that wise beyond your years?
I've definitely experienced it. And honestly, with those situations, it's very aggravating because I don't know. I feel like it's a situation where they're basically calling me stupid or some type of like ignorant situation. because you're telling me I'm wise beyond my years, but it's just like anybody else in that situation, even older than I am, can see the flaw in what you are doing, especially like when, for example, I'm at work. I am the baby of my site. And so when we start having discussions with the staff, I kind of chime in and have little conversations about what we can do. I'm like, oh, we could probably do something with like meditation. We could start doing journaling, having more groups on Fridays, things of that sort. And so I've had a couple of my coworkers kind of pull me to the side and they're like, wow, you just know so much information. And it's like, it's that experience, it's not me being wise beyond my years. It's a mixture of kind of like trauma, and, just, being in that stage of transitioning into a new age development of life. So it's just like, I don't know. It's irritating.
And it's like it never crossed their mind that maybe we're not wise beyond our years. Maybe young people are just a lot smarter than anyone gives them credit for. And like, we're humans, crazy. And I will never miss an opportunity to bring up Taylor Swift. So to quote Taylor Swift and kind of make this relevant for like young people, she said this regarding girls and young women. So much of the time, our response to bad behavior, usually on the part of men, is a lot of the time treated like the offense itself, in the way that, if we stand up for ourselves finally and stand up to a bully who's treating us badly, whether that's one person or whether that's a system, we're called crazy or wise beyond our years, because that's not a compliment. That's just like belittling. So yeah, I'll never miss an opportunity to bring up Taylor.
So, Ben, what do you think about, being the youngest one in the room? What makes you kind of irritated with the situation, if you feel irritated at all?
I mean, I feel like from my experience being younger in the room, like you really don't get a voice. I mean, you like, and if you do speak up, they really don't respect what you have to say. Cause one, not only if you're the youngest in the room, it's like you're just viewed as the baby. So it's like the baby is viewed as always being taken care of, always been baby throughout their life type situation. So they never really had to work for anything. But in all actuality, I feel like in my life experience, because I'm the baby in my family, you got to work the hardest to earn what you get. You got to like literally put your nose to the grind. You got to study more. You got to work harder on certain aspects in life, because nobody really thinks that one, they don't think that you're working hard enough. And then two, they don't really appreciate what you bring to the table. And so it's like, especially since the fact that like in my family, my older sister and everything like that, like she was a sports phenomenon. She was a book smart kid. And I wasn't none of that. So it was like, I would always be outshined. I don't want to say outshined because I always like appreciate your siblings, but it was like, if it would feel like I was always in her shadow. So it was like whenever she would say something and I would say something similar, she would get the praise for it. And I would be like, and then they would look at me and be like, oh, you got that from her. And like that's the type of experience I have for that. So it's like, in my personal opinion, I feel like being the youngest in the room, it's like they really appreciate anything that you do, in my personal opinion. So I don't know. I just feel like for my walk of life, it's like, it's just a lot of hard work. It's like, you gotta stay, whatever your goal is, whatever cause that drives you, you gotta stay true to that, because if we're talking about fellow staff, we're talking about family members, if we're just talking about random people, I just feel like they won't fully appreciate what you're doing. And you got to know what you're doing is like gonna better the room, better the city, better the place that you're in, even if some people don't even notice what you're doing. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of short, but that's how I feel about that topic.
That's great, Ben. Thank you for sharing. And as someone that knows you, you are a really hard worker. And it just like sucks because I think some of our experiences as like in this role has been in the workplace, like being the youngest person, almost like decoration, like, oh, we're checking a box. Like this organization is representing youth because they have this one young person working for them. And it is that struggle to actually be like, no, these are my ideas that we should try, not just have me here so you can say you have a young person here, but like actually listen and let's implement this would be really important. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I got one more thing. I feel like for us younger people working in the roles that we have, I feel like our facilities use as like poster children type situation. Like they'll have us get up, speak in meetings, have us talk to the communities and everything like that. But once we leave and like they get in the room by themselves, like they automatically write off what we have to say. And like even if they do like try and implement it, it's not to like our point of view. They like use it to the only like point that they feel like it's accessible. And that's another thing. I feel like we don't get no justice because it's like if you guys are gonna use this for our voices, use this for our expertise on the situation, like you should actually admit what we're saying. Not only because like we have lived experience in the fact of the matter, but it's like I feel like since we're still going these things while even while we're working, even though we're staff technically, we're still going through the same thing as other youth as we speak. So I just feel like it's very important that like the facilities, the people, if they're gonna hire us, if they're gonna listen to us, they should like actually, I don't know, have the due diligence, if that's the right word, to like actually use our expertise and stuff like that.
You know what? I'm gonna bounce off of that as well because I've noticed when it comes to that situation, they always put us in the spotlight, but they will never take whatever we say. They'll always take it with a grain of salt, you know? And so instead of having what we said be something for them to listen to, they'll take our words, mix them up, make them sound more adult like. I'm putting air quotes on adult like because it's just bigger words, just they use the dictionary. Let's be honest here. So they'll use dictionary words and then they'll be like, they'll put our face on it, but it'll never be our word. So it's one of those things where it's just like, if they took it to the aspect of us actually using our words of this is not okay, this is something that needs to be changed, just to be like, here's a problem, let's fix it. I don't know. It's very frustrating that we try to advocate for ourselves so much that it's severely neglected and it's not fair because I don't know how many times I've like seen high school kids, because my baby brother's still in high school, and I've seen a couple of the kids like going back and forth with their teachers, like, I need help with this. I need help with that. I'm struggling. And then the teachers will be like, well, I have X amount of students. And if I individually help you, then I have to individually help everybody else. And it's like, that's your job. That's something that you need to do. Regardless if it's a teacher, a parent, things of that sort, you have a duty to the child. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got into this situation, you need to help them. You can't just baby bird them and just kick them out the nest and then be like, figure it out. There is a amount of guidance that you need in this situation in order to do what you need to do.
Not to mention that everybody has different needs, like everybody has their own individualized set of whether that's educational needs, what they need in school or in the workplace. Like we're not just cogs of a machine. We're all individual humans. And that's going back to what we were talking about with kind of how young people a lot of the time feel tokenized whenever an organization does even choose to listen to us, whether it's an organization or a system or whatever that may be. That's what I love about Youth Move Colorado and how like one of our priorities is fighting against that, especially when it comes to like the YHGP grant that we've all been working so hard on. So that's just one shout out, one little thing I love about Youth Move Colorado.
Yeah, I would like to share a little tactic that I use, like, when I am not heard. I just usually go to the next person that is willing to listen, and if they're not comprehending or listening to what I'm saying, I just go to the next person until someone realizes that I'm speaking so much to so many people. Then they realize, like, a light bulb clicks in their head, and they're like, "Oh, this is what she's talking about." It's like, well, why do I have to go to, the next boss or the next higher up or the next person? It's like, it shouldn't have to be like that. Someone should just listen to me in the first place and then actually comprehend on what I'm saying. And if they don't understand me, they should ask me, what exactly are you talking about? And then it should solve like all the communication issues.
I'm
You
gonna
should
bounce off of that, which that was really good. I'm sorry, Julia, but I'm definitely gonna bounce off of that, Savannah. So with that situation as well, another thing that I do is if nobody is listening to me, I also write that down because the thing is that like I don't know how I've been in so many situations where I've been at work and the managers being mean to me or I had a coworker being very inappropriate, things of that sort. What you can do in that situation is you write the date, write the time, like exactly what happened at that time, where it was located, and what happened. So basically, kind of like a report at work, if they actually do it for yourself because at that point, it's going to start to rack up. And the more you mention it, they'll finally probably get to a point where they'll say something, but further going on with that, going up the hierarchy. So if you are having a problem with a coworker, go to a manager. If the manager is not doing it, then go up higher. Just keep going and going and going until somebody finally answers. And it's aggravating, yes, that you have to go through that situation, but it's just like somebody's bound to listen. And if you get to a point that you get to the news, then you get to the news. So that's about it.
That's a great point. I would like to bounce off of that. Like, definitely write it down. Like, with my situation with my school, I finally found someone who listened. And she was like, "Who have you talked to? When did you talk to them? When did this happen?" And I didn't fully remember, but I had like all of the emails. And then the emails have the date and time. And then I went through my phone record. And it would have been easier because now I'm going to file a report even higher up. So thank you for that, to just get organized, like get all of it written out. So if someone else is going through a similar situation, like definitely remember, like keep track of that because eventually, whether it's the news or whoever it is, you'll be able to say, here's all of the times I tried to talk to someone or whatever the situation is. So yeah, I think writing it down is a great idea for advocating for yourself.
And Savannah, another great takeaway from your technique of just not giving up until you get someone to listen to you, while obviously you should just be listened to like from the get-go. But one great takeaway is that someone will listen eventually. And I think it's really powerful that you just don't give up. I like that.
Yeah, I think the key is to just be consistent and persistent and say at least like the same things to multiple people. And then it's bound to like at least get through to somebody.
I think another strategy for advocating is we've talked about like not giving up. And Lizzie had also mentioned like reaching out to others who'd gone through something similar. And that's what we're doing with Youth with Colorado is we're gathering young people with similar experiences and like together our voices are louder. And like even on the national level with Youth Move National, like that's the idea is you get a bunch of people together and we can do it together instead of alone. So in my community, we don't have a Youth Move Colorado chapter yet, but I did meet another youth leadership committee and it was super cool. They invited different speakers from the community, from nonprofits and schools, and heard about different problems going on in the community. And then they voted on, and these are like middle and high schoolers, they voted on which cause they wanted to work towards for the year. And they ended up choosing preventing violence and improving education. And then they raised money and donated it to a local elementary school to improve the school. So I thought that was a really cool example of like what a group of young people did in my town. They came together, like found what was important to them, and then raised money to help.
Thank you for sharing that, Amanda.
I'm trying to find some more tools that would help because it just seems like we said everything that we needed to. The only thing that I'm really like thinking about is like also stopping and thinking as well. That would be another good tool for advocating yourself because I notice a lot of times when people are trying to advocate for themselves, it'll be mostly like emotion based and it gets lost in what they are saying. So I would probably add a think before you speak kind of situation because it's just like, I know that you are very passionate in what you're trying to be advocating for, but the more emotional you get in that situation, the more it's often ignored and it'll definitely get lost into how you're feeling. And they'll be like, oh, they're just being emotional. We're going to completely ignore what they said and be more focused on what emotion they are setting. So that's another thing that I would like to add.
That is fantastic advice. Fantastic. Cool. We might wrap up.
Yeah. I guess one final thought I have on getting your thoughts organized is we talked about like writing down when the incidents happen, writing down, if the doctor refuses, and it can also help if you're feeling really emotional or if you're nervous to talk to someone, like write out what you want to say before you talk to the person. And then when it's happening, like you'll have your notes and you won't forget anything and you'll feel like, okay, I know what I want to say, and you'll be more prepared. That can be helpful too.
Love that. I do that when I have to call and like make appointments. I'll make myself a little script because I get nervous talking to people.
I do the exact same thing, which that's like a social anxiety thing, I'm guessing, because even then, like I could be ordering food and I hate this absolutely. My family makes me do it because they're trying to get me out of that social anxiety situation. So they always have me order the pizza. And I'm like, hi, yes, you guys serve pizza, knowing it's a Pizza Hut. And I'm like, geez. So like writing down a script always helps too. So that's a really good point, Julia, that you said that, because I don't know how many times I like repeated myself what I was going to say, and then it'll end up being like completely backwards, words are flipped, and I just sound crazy. So that would be a really good idea for the youth to add to their little toolkit of advocacy for them.
All right. That was our 4th episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. A couple of reminders. Another shout out to Colorado Youth Awareness Week. That's happening the second week of September. And there's going to be a lot of great resources statewide, whether that's in your community or online. And that's going to be a great celebration of youth voice and advocacy. Check out our social media platforms. Our Instagram is @YouthMoveCo. No spaces.
Thank you.
And we will catch you guys in the next episode.